Welcome back, campers. I'm Jersh,
And I'm Mears.
and we're the Modern Campfire Crew huddled around our computers to chat all things movies and pop culture at some point. Maybe never, maybe always. We'll find out soon. In this episode, we're going to review the movie Killers of the Flower Moon, which was directed by Martin Scorsese, screenplay by Martin Scorsese and Eric Roth, based on the book of the same name, starred Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Lily Gladstone. I watched this movie again around the same time that I watched Maestro, so it had been a little while, but a lot of this movie stuck with me as well, even though it's 3.5 hours. So I feel comfortable kind of speaking to it and sharing my thoughts on it. And Mears, it's my understanding that you recently just watched it over the last few days. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, I split it up into like an hour and a half, an hour and a half.
Okay, perfect. Even more than that because it's 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, we're going to do a spoiler free section first where we don't spoil the movie just in case you don't happen to know the real life story. And then we will get into a spoiler filled section where we will spoil real life and what happens in this movie. Just briefly, the film is set in 1920s Oklahoma and focuses on a series of murders and relations with the Osage Nation after oil is discovered on their tribal land. So, Mears, let me ask you, what did you know about this movie before you watched it, and what did you think of it overall?
So I saw the trailer in whenever I went to go see some movie, and I immediately was like captivated by the trailer. I was so interested, and it's kind of always been like in the back of my mind as something that I've been wanting to see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm so excited that we have an excuse to watch it and talk about it. Um, So yeah, I didn't know anything about it.
About
All I
real,
knew about
like
it
what
was what I
happened? Mm-hmm.
saw. Correct, yeah. Never heard of it before in my life. Had no idea it happened. Um, and yeah, all I knew was what they showed in the trailer. So I had, a general idea of like something's going on. Um, my ideas about the characters were different. I definitely thought characters were gonna be one way and they were another way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I loved this movie.
Really? Okay.
I loved it. I think it's great. I loved just like the whole feel of it. It was a tense movie pretty much the whole way through. I felt the tension. It affected me emotionally.
Mm.
Um, especially the end. Um,
Yeah.
I was enthralled. I didn't really want to stop watching it. Um, I wonder what it would have been like because I know you watched it I think all the way through in one sitting.
Yeah.
I wonder like if I would have the same feelings if I did that or if it's different because I broke it up so I didn't necessarily feel the runtime.
Okay.
Um, but to me, the way that I watched it, I feel that the runtime was justified. There was a lot of stuff you put in this, and if you want to um deal with it properly and with the care that it deserves, I think it needs to be a long movie. And I honestly haven't seen a whole lot of Scorsese movies, which I know that's like a cardinal sin to be a film major and not. But
Which ones have you
I'm definitely
seen?
interested in watching more.
Which ones have you seen?
Wolf of Wall Street. Um,
Have you seen Goodfellas?
no, no, I haven't.
Do you know what it's about?
I think it's a mobster movie, right?
Have you ever seen a trailer for it?
Mm-mm.
Do you know who's in it?
Is it Ray Liotta? Maybe.
Among other people, yeah. Okay, it's okay.
Probably De Niro, probably. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't.
We'll have to
Yeah.
cover it one day because
Okay.
yes. I mean, so this is interesting because I'm actually really familiar with Martin Scorsese's. I've seen almost all of his movies. I've seen Taxi Driver, Wolf of Wall Street, Goodfellas, Aviator, Gangs of New York.
Oh, okay. I've seen Aviator.
Um, I watched The Irishman, which was his really long movie from 4 or 5 years ago that also starred Robert De Niro. Um, and so where I come down on this movie is it's really good. It's not my favorite Martin Scorsese movie, and I do agree that there is a lot going on in this movie. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of kind of integral, intimate moments that you don't want to gloss over because they genuinely add to character or they add to the story, to the overall plot. I did feel like there's probably 30 minutes of this movie. Like it should have been like a 3 hour epic. And I think it might have been damn near perfect. But at 3.5 hours, and I'll get into this in spoilers, but there's some things that um, are kind of a little redundant where it's like the point was made and the emotion was felt and then we keep going back to this scene and kind of showing these same things happening and it doesn't really it doesn't really push character or story forward, just in my personal opinion. I feel like they probably were like, well, this is really how it happened, so let's just show all of this. Where from like a movie perspective, I'm like, kind of this point was made already a while ago. I don't need 4 or 5 more scenes illustrating this. I got it. Um, yeah, gorgeous cinematography, costumes, like
Mm-hmm.
it's Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, and they somehow make you forget that you're watching like a modern day 2023 movie. It's like time
Mm-hmm.
travel, It's like the costumes and the environment and the atmosphere and the acting. The acting is great. I don't think DiCaprio ended up getting a Best Actor nom in this one. Um,
Right.
it was really stiff competition this year. To be completely fair, it was a really strong
Mm-hmm.
year for lead performances for the men and the women. So, if he's gonna kind of miss out on a year, this is a year to have it happen in. But once it took me a while to realize what the hell was going on with his character and some other characters, and I'm like, I once it finally started to click, I was like, oh, I love this. At first, I was infuriated, as you should be. And then, like, once you start to realize what's going on with his character, you're like, oh, this is actually really interesting. You almost never see this in movies and in his performances. So, yeah, loved the acting throughout. I felt that the movie, I feel like the first half is almost like the backstory, the prequel, and then when another prominent character shows up halfway through the movie to really push the plot forward,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like when the movie starts. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so I felt that there was a little bit of time that could have been lost to get to the actual momentum. But again, it's top tier generational talent. You can't really
Mm-hmm.
complain too much about getting to spend time with these performers and these directors and the music. The music is so good. It's so like propulsive and energetic and eerie and just oh my god, like the music really stood out to me. Um so I enjoyed it quite a bit. There wasn't a lot I didn't like. Again, no spoilers here. But just to give people general thoughts before we rate it, what did you think of the ending?
I thought that that was a great way to do it. Better than just um a black screen with some text.
Mm-hmm.
Um it um made me think like, is the whole movie it's what's going on at the end, like that's them telling the story and like we're seeing like what kind of they're telling, which is kind of how I imagine is how it was meant. When certain person comes out at the very end. I was super affected by that. I
Me
thought that
too.
was so well done.
Mm-hmm.
It was perfect. I was like, of course, that has to happen.
Yeah.
Um, it was super reverent, and it made me like I was ready to cry at that point. Um,
There's
yeah, I
just
loved
something
the
about it.
ending.
And again, if it was not based on a true story, I would have been shouting at the screen, "What the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing? What the hell are we
Yeah.
all doing? This is madness. Why is none of this stopping?" But because this
Mhm.
is kind of pretty much, how it went and it's like a based on a true story, historically, fairly accurate story,
So crazy.
you're just mad. You just get mad.
It's.
Um
I
so
can't
yeah,
believe that happened.
yeah. So definitely, Uh, it really merges what I think some of the best kind of pieces of media can do, which is it entertains you and it educates you and it informs you, and you come away with new information that can have you reflect on your own history and your own life, that kind of thing, you know? So yeah, so let's give our campfire marshmallow ratings, and then we'll get into spoilers. So what would you rate this movie?
I'm gonna get wild and crazy. I'm gonna give it 10 marshmallows. This is
Damn.
one of my favorite movies of recent memory. Um, I, if you remember before when we reviewed The Northman, I gave that a 10. To me, it's on the same level.
Sure.
It might even be better than The Northman.
Yeah.
Um,
There's more to it for
this,
sure.
yeah, this I loved this so much.
I really liked it. I'm not as high as you are, but I also have a more extended history with Scorsese, and there, in my personal opinion, I have more of an attachment to other Scorsese, and there are some things that he kind of does that we just kind of take for granted. Um, and again, it's just decades and decades of masterful craft, where it's just like, so because I've been around so long and been with his movies for so long, I just have stronger appreciation attachments to other movies that I happen to have already seen first. But this is right up there. I give this one an 8. Um, I do think an 8 is excellent, above the competition of similar media or genre, but a few issues make it harder to recommend outside of pre-existing fans who will be more forgiving of its faults. So if you're not a movie nerd and you're not a Scorsese head, I think there's going to be parts where the time weighs on you and long stretches of character work is maybe lost on general audiences, and yeah, and if you don't like, again, true stories, you're gonna maybe be infuriated. So, um,
I can see where like maybe the average like moviegoer that's used to like popcorn flicks might not like it. But I think that they're wrong, and I think it's a work of art.
yeah, we're snobs around here. Really quickly before we get into spoilers, also Robert De Niro. He's so late in his career. He's given so many performances, and he had a really big stretch over the last 10 years where he just was just kind of Robert De Niro, like as a grandpa or father figure. And
Yeah.
specifically for Scorsese movies, he did this in The Irishman as well. If you liked this, you would really. I think The Irishman is better than this movie. Um,
Okay.
uh, it's an actual performance of somebody that late in their career, that late in life. You're buying into how he's speaking, what he's saying, his motivations. It's again, you lose Robert De Niro. At least I did. Um,
Yeah.
and there's plenty of movies I can point to over the last 10 or 15 years where he's just Robert De Niro. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So yeah, very a great movie. We both strongly recommend it. Obviously, if you're coming across this review and you haven't watched it already, it's available on Apple Plus. Definitely seek it out. But let's go ahead and get into the spoiler talk for Killers of the Flower Moon right now. Full spoiler warning for Killers of the Flower Moon. If you have not seen the movie already, or you don't care about spoilers, we are going to talk about anything and everything that we want. Not going to purposely go through the whole plot, but are going to talk about things that we would consider spoilers. So, what are some things that you either really liked or maybe you didn't like, even though you overall feel it is a 10 out of 10, that you think that you consider spoilers that you want to talk about first?
So with Ernest, I based on the trailer, I feel like it leads you to believe that like this bad stuff is going on, but he's gonna protect his wife. He loves his wife. He's gonna protect her from whatever it is. But then and then so getting into watching it, I'm like, he's doing all this stuff. Yeah, he loves his wife. Whether he really does or not, that's maybe up to you because he was, poisoning her.
And
Um,
killing her family.
yes, I'm like that's not love.
Mm
Um, what is love? No,
hmm.
I was he made me mad. I was shocked that he was doing. I could not believe like every time it got worse and worse and worse. Um, and I was like begging her to see it and be like, "Don't, why, what, how do you not know? Like, how do you not know? How do you not see that?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought he did a good job of being like this kind of somewhat goofy kind of guy who was also like a bad dude. Like specifically the scene that really it is so interesting, like the tone of the movie, because it was dark, but then there were some comedic moments.
Mm-hmm.
Um Especially so the scene where it's him and De Niro and they're in the car and it's after
Yeah.
um
I told you, I
can't think of the
swear.
guy's name. Was yes, and it's like you didn't. He shot him in the back of the head. He was supposed to shoot him in the front of the head, make it
Mm.
look like a suicide, and it was the back and forth of this is the back of the head and this is the front of the head, and I told him, da, 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 da. Like I was laughing at that. It made it, and I think it goes. Um, I think that is uh saying something really good about the screenplay and about his performance, because I liked him, but I hated him.
Yeah.
You know, in a way, I was rooting for him to do the right thing, um, but I also hated him, and I was like, dang, Leonardo's a good actor, man. He's
Mm-hmm.
good, but yeah, I loved it so much. I loved it. I loved it. I loved Lily Gladstone's performance. I started almost weep. I didn't get to a full weep, but whenever um, Rita and Bill Smith's house is blown up, and he
Mm-hmm.
comes back to tell her that he's dead, and she just full on sobs at the bottom of the stairs. I felt it. I was like, "Oh, you're gonna get me." I was
Yeah.
like, "That, give her the Oscar." Um, it just and it was just such a good. I loved it so much. I had the best time watching it.
Yeah, I couldn't really talk about her character in spoilers because I wanted to say in the spoiler free section that, or non spoilers, that I wish she had more to do. I wish she was in the movie more. Like she gets bedridden and she's gone for an hour of the
Yeah,
movie. And which again, I mean, that's what happened. That's fine.
yeah,
But I didn't want to say that in the spoiler free section and have people think, oh, she dies early or, or
right,
something happens to her where she's just not in the movie so much. So, but yes, I
yeah.
loved her performance. I loved her character. So both so interesting and so human where it's like they just think each other is cute and they like each other and there's a lot of other things around them that is like screaming they shouldn't trust each other or be with each other, but they just are anyway, and it's the 1920s and you don't really think past that. And yeah, he what I think that probably could have been cut is, for me personally, is that there was just way too
Hmm.
many insulin scenes. Like I got the point. Like they just kept going
Mm.
back to more insulin, more insulin, more insulin. I'm like, I already know he's killing her. I already know that he's a dimwit, and I genuinely, and maybe it's supposed to be ambiguous, but have you ever seen Shutter Island?
Oh yeah.
That's
Oh, that's
Scorsese as well.
Scorsese, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, yeah, yes.
Um,
I've seen it many times.
so, um, and again, maybe it's ambiguous on purpose, but I feel like the movie very clearly portrayed that he's such a dimwit that he didn't know he was doing that. But I think at the end, it's you're supposed to wonder if he's lying or not. Where
I
she
think he
asks
knew.
him. I don't think he
Yeah.
knew because he apparently genuinely loved her.
Yeah, well, he knew whenever they gave him that extra vial and said this will keep her down.
Hmm.
That's how I like this will keep her down, because she was like
But
so
I
that he
think
wouldn't
he's
be
so
on to him.
stupid. I think he's such a dimwit character where you're supposed to shoot him in the front of the head and you literally do the opposite. That I don't. I'm saying even if he looks like he understands, I think an idiot would be like, "Oh yeah, yes, of course," but then not know what the hell he's doing. You know what I mean? So I felt like I feel like if he knew he was poisoning her because he was literally staring her in the face saying, "I want to protect you above all else no matter what. We have kids together, all these things." And he was already making the money anyway because he was killing the rest of her fucking family. Like I just felt like
Hmm.
he didn't know that he was doing that. That was my
He
interpretation
might
of it.
he might not have known before at the beginning. Well, I don't know if they were even poisoning her at the beginning, but until they said here's like they gave him that vial, and then remember at the end he like starts drinking it, and then he's
Mm-hmm.
like kind of out of it. But that's when they said give her this file, and they said this will keep her down. And
Right.
then
So
I
at
think
it,
then he
okay, okay. So at the end, he probably
he
most
knew.
certainly lied about knowing or about figuring it out. But I think the majority of the time he didn't know. That's kind of like what I'm saying is like he didn't know until he knew. If you understand, you know what I'm saying? Like from
Yeah.
the get go, he wasn't on Hale's side. He wasn't on the king's side trying to poison his own wife. He was just doing what he was
Right.
told. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
loved. So first of all, I loved figuring out that the Leo character was a dimwit because it's not immediately, it's just a war boy come home and see his uncle and I love money and I like pretty girls, and then it's like the more the movie goes on and the more mistakes he keeps making, I'm like, okay, this is on purpose, he's a fucking idiot. And you normally don't see that for protagonists in movies at all, let alone one that Leo would play. So it really is like it was a surprise because it's like, wait, you're the main character. I'm supposed to root for you. Who am I supposed to root for in this movie? The Osage people. That's who you're supposed to be rooting for.
Yeah.
The cutaways to the murders were brutal, where they were just like ruthlessly
Mhm.
murdered in broad daylight. Um, I loved early on in the movie when the first woman was sick and nobody understood what was going on and she had some sort of
Mhm.
illness and it's the 1920s. You don't know, is it influenza? Whatever,
Yeah.
right? And then as the shots happen with Leo and the insulin, you start to oh, they're poisoning them all. They're killing them in every which way. They don't care. So yeah, I thought that was all great. And then finally, when Jesse Plemons shows up and they get the FBI involved and they get some kind of undercover people putting a case together, that's when it like really revved up my interest and I kind of like perked up and watched it even more intently. So before we get into the actual ending that we talked about
Mhm.
earlier, what did you think kind of like about this whole third act courtroom drama business and like a stunt Brendan Fraser casting? Like how did all that go for you?
Yeah. So first, I was shocked when all of a sudden it's okay. It's John Lithgow is here. I gasped when I saw Brendan Fraser. I was like, oh yeah, because he was there was another Scorsese movie that he was in that was like a couple years ago, right?
Not
I feel like
Scorsese, it was Steven Soderbergh.
that's what I'm
Yeah, and it
thinking
had
of.
Don Cheadle and I don't remember the name of it, but it was a good movie too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Um, yeah. So I was shocked that um he ended up that they swayed him to go along with it eventually. Although I understand it because he's thinking like they're gonna they're gonna kill my family if I don't do this. But kind of they're already dead anyway, really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, he was in a really difficult spot. And I knew as soon as De Niro told him, if you get arrested, you're gonna get out, you're gonna be okay. And I'm like, oh, he's gonna throw him right under the bus. He's gonna fall for, he's gonna be the fall guy for everything because it was showing you the whole movie, everybody that they were having do, the crimes, then they were ratting on them and having them go to prison. And I thought it was so funny that when Jesse Plemons came in and they're like, "Oh, we're looking for the people that have done this," and then now all of a sudden they're they're giving them to them with these random crimes, like, "Oh, they're doing a robbery and they were killed," and "Oh, look, it's the guys that killed the people." Like, here you go. Like they were being so obvious, and it was so
Mm-hmm.
funny. Um, yeah, yeah, I was surprised that it was um that it kind of dragged on for the third act. I kind of figured it was maybe going to be like a scene or two, like, oh, he's going on the stand, and oh, whatever. Um, but I loved the scene where he was in the prison cell and they told him that his
Mm-hmm.
child had died, and I was like, man, give him the Oscar for this. But I mean, that was such like I was ready to cry at that. Like I
That hit
believed him.
Yeah, that got to me, but the big payoff, the big scene where he like finally stands up to King and tells him, I can't go your way anymore. That didn't kind of have the oomph that I wanted. I
Yeah.
really wanted like to have like a moment there, but in a way, it's more beautiful because it's like it's simple. It's just like, nah, I think I'm done, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
special. There's no Hollywood one-liner about it. Yeah, I definitely like when he kept going back and forth of like, am I gonna agree or am I gonna take the deal or not take the deal and work with Plemons or not? I was just like, just whatever happens, please just tell me what happens now. Like this is like such a last minute third act unnecessary drag out. But again, if that's what happened, then it is important to share it, because that's how close it came to falling apart and King getting away with it. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. I definitely thought that he was probably gonna get away with it for sure.
mm-hmm.
I'm glad he didn't.
So yeah, and Brendan Fraser was over the top. I think it was on purpose because he was trying to be, a showman and just kind of bully the jury and really bully Leo. I thought it was just crazy that he and King had the same attorney, that was allowed, that they hadn't
Huh.
come along far enough in ethics laws to not allow that. Just wild. But yeah, so let's talk about the very ending, which is basically a radio play that gets you caught up with the news, just like old radio plays used
Hmm.
to. But they did it for the movie, and freaking Martin Scorsese comes out to read the ending. I'm with you. That hit me. I almost cried
Hmm.
because not just because of it was a beautiful way to end the movie. I thought it was a terrific ending to give you the a more exciting and tonally appropriate end to find out what happened to the future of these characters. But just thinking about Martin Scorsese in general, how old he is, how long he's been around, and finally putting himself out there on camera and like bringing his story that he wanted to tell to a close. And it's not his story; it's the Osage people's story. And there's
Right.
all there's throughout the production and award season, and now leading up to the Oscars, there's still all this back and forth of like, whose story it was it to tell and XYZ. And it just at the end of the day, you got Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio I don't know who what else you could want out of life, but to have those gentlemen tell a story for you. You know what I mean? Because now there's so much more awareness than probably there ever
Hmm.
was in the history of humanity, because
Yeah.
these
Like I said,
Hollywood
I didn't
juggernauts,
know.
yeah, took it on. Um, but uh, but yeah, just thinking about his career and how many movies he's made, and I almost was like, are you trying to tell us this is your last movie? Like, are you like saying goodbye? You know
Mm.
what I mean? On camera? I just thought it was wild. That's not the first time he's been on camera in one of his own movies. I won't spoil
Okay,
it,
that's what I was
but
gonna ask. Yeah.
no,
Did you notice? Did you recognize Jack White there at the end?
no, but I heard about it in subsequent trivia. I read about it in subsequent trivia after I first watched it. I didn't recognize. I'd have to go back and see him.
Yeah, so just a little bit ago, I rewatched the end and I was like, that guy is so familiar. Who is he? So I looked on the cast and I was like, oh, it's Jack White. Yeah, of course. I just didn't recognize him with his hair like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Um,
didn't. I
but
didn't
yeah,
recognize him at all.
but yeah, the ending, it was super effective and probably one of my favorite movie endings that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, it really, again, it used a storytelling device of the era, of the time setting of the movie, and still let us know, jump to the future and give us the wrap up to really tell the whole story of like kind of how different characters died and what consequences were and stuff like that. So you really have like a beginning, middle, and end of the saga of this kind of generational tragedy. I was holding out hope. The storyteller in me was holding out hope that there was going to be some big plot twist at the end, that like King was good after all, because I really felt like
Oh.
that De Niro was playing it really, like for the first hour I was like, I don't know if this guy is bad. Like I genuinely, I can't tell. I don't know. I don't know if he's behind it. He speaks their language. He's in on their meetings. He already has enough. You know what I mean? But I mean, if
Hmm.
if human history has shown us, like it's never enough for anybody who wants more. So
Right.
but yeah, I thought there was going to be some big plot twist where it was like, De Niro or DiCaprio is such a dimwit that he rolls over on King, and turns out King was not involved. Like I was like that would have like blown my mind, you know. But no, the villain was the villain. I did think I like Jesse Plemons as an actor, but I feel like he was a little too kind of straight shooter, generic FBI agent here. There was not a lot of characterization or personality for him except to come and try to solve the case. Where, it's like if we would have taken some of the 25 minutes away from seeing the same insulin shot, if we could have learned a little bit about this FBI investigator and why he's so passionate about bringing people to justice, and how he did a little bit more behind the scenes, I thought that would have been a little bit worthwhile to really kind of build up kind of the confrontation that everybody was having. I really feel like heroes and villains, protagonists and antagonists kind of switch and evolve and change throughout the course of the movie. It's like you root for Leo, you root against Leo, right? And the only constant was, again, the Osage people, which were, as far as we can tell, completely innocent in this and just taken advantage of, So I'm definitely glad that I watched it. We only have a couple more Best Picture nominations left, and I'm super excited to get that wrapped up so that we can get to our Oscar prediction show. So that's going to do it for this episode. Why don't you take it home, Mears?
So thanks for watching. Let us know what you thought about the video. Please leave a like, comment, or subscribe if you haven't already. And we will see you in the next video.